The wallet, this one is a fiction, just to give some of you a heads up. When it all began, I was 24, teetering on the edge of 25. I shared a place with my girlfriend. Personally, I've always been pretty average, 5'10", tipping the scales at 175 pounds, with unremarkable brown hair and eyes. Though, these days, flecks of gray are starting to betray my age before I've even hit 30. Drea was something else entirely. Picture someone who turns heads effortlessly, standing at 5'2" with an energy that's hard to ignore. She was light, but her presence was anything but minor, with striking blue eyes and vibrant red lips that could capture any room's attention. She epitomized the classic image of allure. My job at the time was to oversee the night shift at an auto parts warehouse, a way to bide my time. This waiting game was due to a hefty inheritance from my grandfather, slated to come my way post-25th birthday. He had left me a fortune, under the condition that I live my life rightly before receiving it. The criteria were specific: a college degree, 2 years of solid work, and remaining unmarried. Drea and I had been together for 3 years, having met in my final college year. She was working as a waitress in a bar I used to hang out with my friends. We became serious quickly after graduation. If not for the inheritance, we might have already tied the knot. I truly believed Drea loved me, just as I loved her. Previous relationships often saw my financial prospects as a hurdle, thinking perhaps that foregoing the inheritance for marriage would prove their worth over the money. But money, while it can't buy happiness, certainly makes life more enjoyable when times get tough. I've always approached life with a conservative mindset, aiming to excel in whatever I tackle. Drea, however, lived with a freer spirit, shaped by a challenging past. Her background was rough, to say the least, forcing her to make tough calls just to get by. Despite the rumors of her wild days before we met, I never held her past against her. After all, we both weren't saints. The experiences that shaped her also brought us closer, in ways I had never anticipated. Drea was always a bit unpredictable. Sometimes, when I arrived home from work, she'd greet me at the door in a way that was both surprising and theatrical, reminiscent of a playful scene you might see on a family TV show. She'd mimic a playful pet, engaging in antics that were both amusing and provocative, initiating a kind of performance art that left nothing to the imagination. Her behavior was a catalyst for intimacy, transforming even the most mundane days into an escapade of closeness and passion. Living with her, our home life revolved around simple pleasures, so much so that the television became an obsolete piece of furniture. Our connection was intense, a testament to our physical compatibility. I understand how this might sound to others. Hindsight often brings clarity wrapped in cliches about unchanging nature. In my defense, Drea's sister, Molly, who shared Drea's beauty and vivacity, had embraced a conventional life of marital bliss and motherhood, suggesting that change was possible. I harbored hopes that Drea might find a similar path. Yet, I wasn't naive. I kept an informal watch over her, through friends and acquaintances, ensuring her fidelity. She remained loyal, a fact she proudly proclaimed to any would-be suitors, affirming her commitment to us. However, our story veered off course in a manner as old as time. An unexpected incident at work led to an early return home, where I found my usually quiet building alive with noise and activity, all emanating from our apartment. The scene inside was chaotic, filled with laughter and strangers, a stark contrast to the life Drea and I shared. Amidst the confusion, I was handed a beer, an inadequate peace offering for the betrayal I felt as I stepped into the uproar of what was supposed to be our sanctuary. "Hey there, have a drink," he offered with a smirk. "Just hang tight for your turn. This party's going all night." And her clueless boyfriend won't be back till dawn. She'll be all prim and proper by then, ready to play the devoted partner. Can you believe it? Earlier, she was all over her own brother. Approaching the bedroom, the sounds were unmistakable. A man's low groans and a woman's raspy shouts, but not the words you'd expect in a loving relationship. I nudged the door open, and there they were on our bed. The bed we'd picked out together after visiting countless stores to find one that perfectly matched our tastes. She was lost in the moment with some guy I couldn't quite see from where I stood. Her hands were all over him, in a desperate kind of embrace. "You're amazing," she was saying. "Keep going." I couldn't bear to watch. Turning away, I went to the dresser, grabbed my clothes, and then my laptop from the closet. Someone grabbed me, accusing me of trying to steal. "Let go," I warned, but he shoved me hard. I stumbled back, crashing into a wall, as the room erupted into chaos. The man from the bed, her brother, Gus, looked over and froze when he saw me. I grabbed her bike helmet off the floor and swung it in defense, knocking my assailant out cold. Gus was panicking now. "Drea." When Drea and I locked eyes, her scream cut through the chaos. "Jack, no." But I was already out the door, fleeing down the stairs. Outside, I gave into a moment of rebellion, toppling a row of bikes in a domino effect. It wasn't as satisfying as I'd hoped, but it sent a clear message as I made my escape. I climbed into my truck, leaving everything behind. Shocked. Absolutely. Hurt. Without a doubt. Felt foolish. You bet. The revelation hit hard. My self-awareness of naivety was jarring. The love I had for Drea was real, and the disillusionment stung deeply, especially when I had harbored a flicker of hope that she would be different, like her sister. It was a harsh awakening to realize that expectations sometimes lead to disappointment. Driving past the warehouse to check on the repair progress, I found it still plunged in darkness. The head electrician predicted at least another day's delay before operations could resume. With nowhere else to turn, I aimlessly drove around, thoughts swirling. Encountering groups of bikers didn't faze me. If push came to shove, I felt confident in my truck's ability to handle any situation. Then, my phone erupted with calls, all from the apartment's number. Choosing to ignore them, Drea's persistence was clear as the calls kept coming. Hunger eventually drove me to a familiar diner near the warehouse, a place that had become a regular spot given my unconventional work hours. Choosing a strategically positioned table, I remained vigilant, aware of the bikers' potential pursuit. Their motives were unclear, whether they sought to confront me over past altercations or simply to relay a message from Drea. As I settled, a waitress approached, exuding a blend of nervousness and discomfort possibly from her first day on the job. Her unique appearance, from her unconventionally styled hair to her distinct facial features, and notably, her captivating grayish eyes, drew my attention, offering a momentary distraction from the chaos of my current predicament. She was slender, her limbs lean yet possessing an unexpected strength. If we were describing a man, perhaps the term wiry would be apt. My nature has always leaned towards being direct and practical, and by that time, I had already concluded the fate of my relationship with Drea. To me, Drea belonged to the past. There was no room for discussions, apologies, pleas for another chance, or any explanations. The fault was mine. I had been the one to falter, not her. It was my own insecurities and the classic dichotomy many men, including myself, struggle with, desiring their partner to embody contrastive roles based on context. I harbored this unrealistic expectation, desiring Drea to play a certain role only in our private moments, a standard that ultimately doomed our relationship from the start. She shifted from being my future to just someone from my past in a fleeting moment. My next steps were clear: remove my name from our shared lease and start anew somewhere else. Fortunately, our finances were still separate, despite my occasional financial support to her. In that moment, I was caught up in a vivid fantasy with her, an intense connection that felt almost inevitable. Yet, when she caught my gaze and shyly looked away, it felt as though she somehow shared that fleeting thought. She was petite, with a grace that suddenly captivated me, challenging my usual indifference to fleeting desires. Perhaps it was the aftermath of heartbreak, or a deep-seated urge to reaffirm my own worth and vitality in the wake of betrayal. "Can I take your order, sir?" she asked, interrupting my daydream. Caught off guard, I responded with a comment about her eyes, a genuine reaction that bypassed my usual filter. "Is that really what you're going for?" she asked with a hint of surprise. She had started to jot it down and then glanced at it, letting out a small smile. There was an unmistakable spark between us, something out of the ordinary. Everything was moving swiftly, too swiftly for my liking. I've always been more reserved, not exactly the type to jump from one relationship to the next. Typically, it would take me a while to find someone new after ending a relationship. "Sorry," I found myself apologizing. "I didn't intend to say that. It just slipped out." "Your partner might not be too thrilled about this situation," she remarked, then quickly corrected herself. "Sorry, I meant your wife." "I don't have a wife," I responded. "Never did." "I've never had a wife either," she said with a grin. "What I mean is, I'm not seeing anyone. No boyfriend." "I'll take the breakfast special," I said, diverting my gaze. Then, looking back up, I asked, "Are you new around here?" "Today's my first day," she replied. As she walked away to place my order, I noticed a slight change in her posture, adding a subtle emphasis to her walk. She glanced back just before she entered the kitchen, catching me in a brief moment of observation. She smiled and then vanished behind the doors. When she returned with my meal, she took a seat across the cafe, keeping an eye on me as I ate. She was attentive, refilling my coffee after just a few sips and checking in frequently. Her smile grew wider as time passed. After I finished, she quickly came over to ask if I needed anything else. "Do you dine here often?" "No, and yes," I replied. She seemed confused at first but then caught on. "I guess I'll be coming here more frequently now," I said with a smile. "Could I get the bill?" She looked down, still smiling. The breakfast special was $5. I handed her 2 fives. She caught my arm with a surprising gentle grip. "You've given me too much," she said, her smile unwavering. She held onto my arm a moment longer than expected. I gently patted the back of her hand, and she let out a soft sigh, a sign of the connection we were forming. "That's for you," I said, indicating the tip. "Oh," her smile broadened, revealing a striking contrast with her bright teeth. Those captivating eyes, combined with her distinct smile, left me puzzled. Her hands caught my attention too, particularly her nails, which were uneven and showed signs of wear. It seemed she might have been gnawing at them or handling tough tasks. As I prepared to leave, I took another glance at her. With a touch of makeup, she had the potential to turn heads. Her eyes were a charm that could draw anyone in. Her hair, though, needed attention. A little growth and styling could transform her. Her physique was lean and athletic, a departure from my usual type, yet there was an undeniable appeal in her slender frame, promising grace over the years. Curiously, despite her imperfections, I found myself drawn to her, an inexplicable desire stirring within. It felt almost primal, perhaps a hidden instinct or an unseen attraction at play. "When will you see me again?" she inquired, hinting at a wish to join me if I had plans to leave. "Maybe by lunch or dinner," I replied, explaining my need to search for a new place, which might delay my return. "And your dinner?" she probed further. "Whenever I feel hungry," I answered with a chuckle, promising to catch up if I missed dinner, certainly by breakfast the next day. "Sounds good," she responded with a light heart. As I got back into my truck, a sense of normalcy began to fade. Reflecting on what a regular morning might bring, I realized the stark contrast to my current situation, especially thinking back to mornings with Drea that now felt worlds away. Seeking a fresh start, I scanned the morning paper for leads and decided to spend the day at a motel, allowing myself a few hours of rest. Awakening to my phone's alert, I pursued appointments from the classifieds, ready to face the day anew. Visiting my former residence, the building manager greeted me, mentioning the previous night's events and Drea's assurance of no future disturbances. Confused, I clarified my unexpected return and our resulting split, requesting my name's removal from the lease amidst the unresolved situation. Puzzled by the necessity of her approval to proceed, "Our names are both on the lease," he stated. "She needs to consent to take full responsibility for the lease." "Here's my thought," I responded. "Our lease is up in a month anyway, and this month's rent is already paid. I'll write you a check for half of next month's rent. This way, we don't need to involve her in this discussion." "I'd still need to talk to her, though," he mentioned. "Just hand me a receipt for the payment," I suggested. "I'll send it to her. Then she'll understand she's only on the hook for half of next month's rent. If she decides to renew the lease by herself, she can do that after the month is up." "All right, let me grab my receipt book," he said, offering a smile. He left the room, taking a surprisingly long time for someone fetching a frequently used item. Returning without it, he sat down and smiled again. I extended the check towards him. "Where's your receipt book?" I inquired. "I need to grab it," he replied, a hint of delay in his action that I found peculiar but chose to overlook. His leisurely pace in retrieving it prompted me to head towards the door. "Where are you off to?" he questioned. "Something's not right," I said. "I think I'll discuss this directly with your boss at his office. Sometimes it's more effective to talk to the person in charge." "Please, let's not go there," he pleaded. She promised me a bonus. I rushed to the door, opening it just in time to nearly collide with Drea attempting to knock. Rushing past her, she reached out to me. "Drea, let go," I demanded. "Jack, we need to discuss this," she implored. "I'm sorry, I wasn't in my best state, and I made a mistake. Can you forgive me? I love you." "All right, Drea," I conceded, embracing her briefly, then stepping back. "I'll let it go this time." "Really? Just this once?" She sought confirmation. "Yes," I affirmed with a smile, but just this once." With that, I turned and exited. "Where are you heading, honey?" she inquired. "I believe it's time we head upstairs to our place. There's something I need to show someone." "I'll follow shortly," I responded. "Just need to grab a few things from the truck." With a smile and a kiss, she made her way back. "Everything okay?" the building manager asked. I flashed him a grin and a thumbs up. Stepping outside, I hummed a light tune, feeling a strange sense of freedom. I drove off to see a couple of apartments across town. The first was nice but managed by the same company as my current place, which was a no-go for me. The second apartment was stunning, right by the water, offering breathtaking views and lush surroundings. But it was double the rent of the place I shared with Drea. The third seemed all right, but the presence of too many youngsters, especially teens loitering about, was a concern. Working nights meant I valued my daytime rest, and a quiet environment was non-negotiable. With a significant windfall expected soon, I wondered why I was fussing over rent. I decided on the waterfront place on a 3-month trial lease. Even though I wasn't scheduled to work, I drove past the warehouse, noticing a few motorcycles parked outside. I had turned off my phone earlier. Turning it back on, I found 6 new messages from Drea since I left her. They ranged from confusion to outright despair. As I was going through them, she called. "Jack, leaving like that was harsh," Drea said. "It was the only way I could leave peacefully," I replied. "Jack, can't we just talk? I love you. I'm willing to do anything to fix this," she pleaded. "It's over, Drea," I stated firmly. "But Jack, it was nothing serious," she tried to downplay. "Drea, do you even listen to yourself? It was a complete breach of trust. You crossed a line that can't be uncrossed," I explained. "So, yeah, it was a deal breaker. You didn't break any laws. We're not officially married, so technically, you were free to see other people as you pleased. Similarly, I'm at liberty to call off our engagement for any reason. Discovering you with multiple men in our shared spaces, for me, a valid reason to do so. No hard feelings, though. I'm not mad. This is probably for the best. Imagine the complications if this happened after marriage. Though, I won't lie, I'm hurt. Drea, it's hard to tell how you ever felt about me, but I had deep feelings for you. It stings, but I'll recover. Keep the furniture and anything else I left behind. I won't be returning." I thought she had ended the call, but it turns out she hadn't, and since I was driving with my phone on speaker, I accidentally overheard her talking to her brother. "This mess is as much on you as it is on me," she said sharply. "I was faithful for over 2 years. We were so close to everything changing. Why didn't you just stay away and focus on your own family? But no, you had to cross the line, not just with me but inviting others too. This wasn't the first time I stepped out of line, but pointing fingers won't solve anything now. We need to find a way out of this mess." Her brother retorted, "You're not the thinking type, are you? I was the one who introduced you to him, remember? Because of the financial prospects. And look how easily he saw through you. You thought he forgave you, and you played right into his hands, only to be left waiting. But you have to help me win him back, Gus," she pleaded. "He's close to receiving that money. And, believe it or not, I do have feelings for him. He's treated me better than anyone. I regret getting involved again. I could have had a different future. But now, we need to think of something because if I lose out on this, you do too. And let's face it, I don't have time on my side. Without love or a share of his wealth, what will I have? Okay, we'll keep looking for him, maybe even detain him to bring you two back together. Given enough time, things might revert back to how they were. If that results in a family, it could mean a steady income. That would be more than enough for us." This rewording maintains the essence of the original narrative while removing explicit content and keeping the tone intact. "But Gus, I really miss Jack," she lamented. "We can't always get what we wish for. If you truly wanted him, perhaps showing a bit more loyalty was in order. It seems you've been far too friendly with too many since you've been together. It was only a matter of time before you got caught. It's surprising it took this long. At least you had the sense to keep your adventures away from his usual spots. Otherwise, he'd have realized much sooner. Now, we just have to figure out what we can salvage from this mess." I heard a door slam in the background and turned off my phone. So, that's the truth. Somehow, it hurt even more. But knowing did offer some solace. All this while, I had imagined Drea had genuinely cared for me but struggled with fidelity. I even thought maybe it was a problem she couldn't control, that maybe with help, she could overcome. But the reality was starkly different. From the start, Drea and her brother had a plan. It seems, in the end, it always boils down to money. Perhaps Drea did have some affection for me, but the primary motive was always financial gain. No matter how much it pained me, logic prevailed. I was better off. Soon, I'd have the means to move on, quite literally if I chose. They apparently have places out near Vegas for such new beginnings. Considering her brother and his crew might be on the lookout, laying low seemed wise. I planned to call work once the power was back, explaining I needed to take some time off. With my accumulated leave, it shouldn't pose an issue. A change of scenery might be exactly what I need. Nothing here for me anymore. As sleep beckoned, hunger reminded me of a promise made earlier. Grabbing my keys, I headed to the cafe, vigilant for any trouble on the way. Entering, I noticed the absence of the waitress from the morning. After a moment, she emerged from the kitchen, visibly tired from her long shift. Upon seeing me, her exhaustion seemed to vanish, replaced by a vibrant energy. She hurried over with a genuine smile, making my decision to dine here again feel like the right one. The other diners looked puzzled as my server managed to spill an entire tray onto their table, leaving the dishes piled up without distributing their orders. It was unclear if she intended to return. Her coworker, casting disapproving glances her way, seemed overwhelmed, juggling too many tasks at once. My server, with a quick promise to return, dashed off to rectify her mistake. Then, another waitress approached me. She was noticeably taller, with a bold makeup look, and introduced herself with a voice that hinted at too many late nights. She inquired if Nadia had been serving me, her breath carrying a hint of mint over something stronger. It was clear her uniform had seen better days, suggesting a routine that lacked attention to detail. She wore a name tag marked Flo, yet there seemed to be little flow in her life. She appeared as someone who once effortlessly navigated life's currents but now found herself adrift, caught in the stagnancy of her own choices. Flo reminded me of someone who might have once turned heads, with a vibrant allure and a confidence in her youthful beauty. She seemed to have chosen a path of least resistance, opting for fleeting connections over the pursuit of a deeper, more enduring companionship. Years had shifted the balance, and the once celebrated features of her youth now told a story of neglect and lost opportunities. The charm in her eyes had dimmed, replaced by the weariness of unfulfilled dreams and the harsh reality of her choices. Her current solitude stood in stark contrast to the life she once led, filled with admirers and temporary joys. Now, returning home to a modest apartment, she faced the stark reality of her situation, overshadowed by the conventional happiness of her siblings' family life. Her query broke my reverie, and I confirmed Nadia's service, reflecting on the glimpse into Flo's life that our brief interaction had offered. "Did you really leave her a bigger tip than the bill?" she inquired, with a hint of disbelief in her voice. "I suppose," I responded, nonchalantly. "And what did she offer you in return? Nothing too outlandish, I hope. Because, I can match whatever it was, but even better and without the cost." If you catch my drift, she added, her gaze darting around nervously. Before she could continue, my brunette waitress returned, casting a stern glance her way. I could have sworn there was a low grumble of discontent from her. "Oh, hey Nadia," Flo chimed in. "I was just helping him out with his order, so you wouldn't be bothered. You seem swamped with that group over there." "He's all yours," Nadia interjected. "But they're nearly done. All that's left is for you to pick up their payment. And, naturally, your tip. It's only fair since you did the legwork," Flo argued. "Mine," Nadia declared, offering me a warm smile as Flo reluctantly moved to another table, muttering about unfair competition under her breath. Nadia's demeanor transformed instantly from irritation to charm as she turned to me. As I perused the menu, her eagerness was palpable, as if she wished she could do more than just take my order. "I'll have the fried steak," I mentioned, noting her lack of note-taking. "No," she countered firmly, her gaze locking with mine. "Then, the grilled steak." She repeated with a gentle head shake. "The meat's not fresh, it's beyond its prime," she confided quietly. "How about a hamburger?" I proposed, hopeful. Her approving smile and nod were my rewards. "I'd like fries with that, and..." I trailed off upon seeing her disapproving head shake. "The oil's old, hasn't been changed in ages. The fries taste off," she whispered. "Not good. Maybe soup," I ventured. "Sure, as long as it's from a can. Avoid the homemade variety here," she advised. "Could I get some tomato soup with my burger?" I inquired, a bit unsure. "Of course," she responded with enthusiasm. "A hamburger and tomato soup will be right up." As Nadia disappeared into the kitchen to pass along my order, Flo returned to my table, her gaze flitting toward the kitchen entrance. "Ever heard of the special companion service?" she whispered, seizing a moment when the kitchen door swung open. She paused, pretending to just be strolling by. Then, noticing it wasn't Nadia who emerged, she approached again, cautious of the kitchen door. "It's quite the experience. We act as if we're in a deep, committed relationship. We could go out for dinner, catch a movie, and then spend the night together, enjoying each other's company. You can even ask me to stay the night if you'd like. It's a premium service, but many find it immensely rewarding," she explained. Suddenly, Nadia was beside us, silent as a shadow, her presence unnoticed until she spoke. "Is this really what you want to offer, at such a risk?" Her voice was a sharp whisper. Flo vanished as if propelled by unseen forces, leaving Nadia to scan the room with a protective intensity. It was like watching a nature documentary, where the predator fiercely defends its territory. Nadia served my meal later, donning a worn jacket over her uniform, blending into the everyday crowd. "My shift's over," she announced. "I do hope you'll return. It'd be a shame not to see you again. I might even have to come looking for you. Could I settle my bill before you go?" I requested. Her expression showed surprise. "You've yet to eat," she pointed out. "I prefer to pay up front," I said. She fetched my bill, which was surprisingly modest. Handing over a 20 and a 5, I saw Flo's reaction from the corner of my eye. "Is this a $5 tip again?" Nadia questioned. "You really don't have to. The 5's for the meal," I clarified. "The 20 is your tip. You've been incredibly attentive." Flo, witnessing this, dropped her tray in astonishment. "I'd love to," she murmured, her voice laced with a hint of mischief. "I'd love to look after you. Make sure you come back soon, all right? But first, you need to eat. You're looking a bit thin. And don't forget my warning about finding you. Also, steer clear of Flo, will you?" In the days that followed, I kept to myself, settling into my new place. I bought new furniture, which arrived in boxes I had to put together, and took a few days off work, though I drove by the office now and then. Each time I passed, I noticed motorcycles parked nearby, a silent reminder of the life I was distancing myself from. I changed my cell phone number, but that hardly made a difference. Instead of constant calls from Drea, my friends bombarded me with messages, all expressing Drea's distress and how unfairly they thought I was treating her. Even the personnel director from work got involved, thinking he was doing me a favor by passing on messages from Drea. He, like many others, knew of our engagement and assumed he was smoothing the way for our future together. Explaining Drea's betrayal became a repetitive chore, especially as I found myself justifying my decision to end things to nearly a dozen people. Most of my male friends seemed to think I was making a mistake, suggesting I should keep Drea in my life for casual encounters, but avoid marriage. The women in my life were divided. Some believed Drea truly loved me and urged me to forgive her mistake, while others supported my decision to move on, labeling Drea unworthy of my time. All I knew was that, in a couple of days, I'd be meeting with a lawyer, hoping to close this chapter of my life. Meanwhile, I focused on setting up my new apartment and getting to know my neighbors, keeping a low profile except for my visits to a local restaurant. I needed the occasional company, despite the risk of being seen. Nadia, a waitress at the restaurant, became a source of comfort. Unlike Drea, who always seemed to be signaling her availability, Nadia simply brightened up at my presence. It became clear that Nadia offered something genuine, a stark contrast to Drea's more transactional approach to relationships. My visits to the restaurant had become a part of my routine, a quiet rebellion against the isolation I'd imposed on myself. Even when the place was busy, the staff, knowing of my preference, would wait for Nadia to serve me. One day, Flo shared a curious observation. "Do you remember the other day when you ordered directly from Sandy?" she inquired, hinting at a subtle shift in dynamics that I hadn't noticed. I agreed. It had been an oversight. Sandy had nonchalantly allowed me to order whatever I fancied, which, unfortunately, didn't turn out well. I ended up choosing something else, and Nadia wasn't pleased. Before I could even take a second taste to pinpoint the issue, she whisked my plate away, insisting I pick another dish. Flo mentioned, "Nadia pushed Sandy against the wall so forcefully she damaged the plaster, and Sandy's been dealing with back issues since. So, you're safe here. But if you're looking to connect, she's off by 6, and I'm here till 9. I noticed Flo was speaking in hushed tones, yet she didn't pause in her conversation with me. Nadia reemerged from the kitchen, offering me a quick smile. She raised a finger, signaling she'd join me shortly. Approaching my table, she glided her hands along my arms and across my shoulders in a comforting manner. This gesture, typically seen as endearing by most, was her way of showing care. Nadia chose to wear leggings under her uniform today. It didn't particularly catch my attention until she caught me looking. "Do you like this shade?" she inquired. "Not really," I responded, noticing her disappointment. I realized that any hint of disapproval from me felt to her like a letdown. "It's not the color itself I'm not fond of, Nadia," I clarified, her mood visibly lifting at the mention of her name and my attention to detail. "I simply prefer seeing you without them. I admire your legs. They're quite remarkable," I admitted. Her response was light-hearted. "You're interested in being with me, aren't you?" Her grin seemed to illuminate the room much more than usual. Her phrasing caught me off guard. It was unlike anything I'd encountered before. I had been asked similar questions in various ways, but never quite like this. "Yes, you do, don't you?" she probed further. "Nadia, perhaps we could consider going on a date first," I suggested. "Why?" she asked, her smile sincere, showing she was genuinely curious, not playing any games. "I genuinely like you," I confessed. "I want to get to know you better. I believe it's important we take our time to explore what we have, without rushing and possibly jeopardizing a future together." "Jack, we're not going to be together for a long time," she told me, leaving me feeling unexpectedly downhearted. "We're going to be together forever," she added with a smile. "Or at least until the end of our days. But you already know that. So, we really should go on a date," I suggested. She chuckled in response. "Okay, if you insist," she replied with a sigh. "But not tonight. Let's wait a bit longer, say 36 hours. Actually, I have to leave now." She glanced around, ensuring we were not the focus of any attention, then quickly pecked me on the cheek. It was an innocent gesture, the kind you might expect in a youthful romance, not what I had anticipated from her, given the connection we shared. As she held my hand momentarily before departing, I noticed something new about her. Her arms were unusually hairy, a detail I had somehow overlooked before, almost like a soft fur. She kissed me on the cheek once more, and this time, I felt a slight fuzz on her face as well. It was subtle, yet it surprised me because I was certain it hadn't been there during our first kiss. She released my hand with a hint of reluctance and walked away. As I watched her leave, a voice interrupted my thoughts. "You've got to be kidding me," he said with disbelief. He pulled up a chair, sat down, and began to criticize my interest in her compared to Drea, who, according to him, was visibly upset over me. He unfavorably compared their physical attributes and questioned my preferences. "There's nothing wrong with my preferences," I defended myself. "I value genuine connections over sharing someone's attention with others. And that's my final stance." He tried to justify their situation by mentioning their close bond due to a challenging upbringing, implying Drea's affection for me was part of a complex situation. "We've been over this," I stated firmly. "Drea and I are done. I want nothing to do with someone who doesn't respect the boundaries of a relationship." "That's not happening anymore," he stated firmly. "Drea had a choice between continuing her actions or choosing you. She opted for you. But it's too little, too late," I countered. "It's over between us." "Then, at least show her the respect of telling her face to face," he insisted. "Can you manage that?" Reaching for my phone, I called her, putting it on speaker for him to hear. "Drea, this is Jack," I began. "We've had our moments, but our differences are just too vast. I can't see us getting married. Discovering what you did in our apartment shattered me. I'm still trying to move past it. Maybe one day we can talk it out. Take care. Know that I did love you, perhaps more than you loved me." "But Jack," she started, her voice trailing off as I ended the call. "How was that?" I inquired. "You're really standing your ground," he observed before standing to leave as swiftly as he had arrived. I guessed he realized he couldn't sway me alone. Recalling a scheme Gus had mentioned, I knew Drea was aware the money was coming to me soon. I decided to leave before anyone could attempt to force me into a situation. I made my escape through the kitchen, exiting through the back like Nadia had moments before. Emerging into the alley, the night was dark, yet the moon hung brightly, almost full. I knew technically the full moon phase was brief, yet to us, it seemed to last up to 36 hours. This detail lingered in my mind, not fully connecting the dots until later. As I pondered the moon and how to discreetly reach my truck, 3 figures emerged from the darkness. "We thought you might try the back exit," one of them said, making a call. "He's here," he announced into the phone. With a smirk, he added, "Looks like we're going on a little trip." "No, we're not," I replied with a grin of my own. "I'm not going anywhere with you, and we certainly don't share any friends." "Come on, don't be that way," he urged. "Your fiancé truly cares about you. This is just one big mix-up." The mention of my fiancé seemed to stir something in the air. I could have sworn I heard a menacing rumble from behind the restaurant's waste bins. One of the trio glanced over his shoulder, seemingly catching the sound too. Suddenly, 3 more guys appeared, and before I knew it, a group of 6 had encircled me. The restaurant's door was shut tight behind them, leaving me with my back against the wall. All right, this isn't the first time I've been in a tough spot, and it likely won't be the last. I might go down, but not without a fight. "I'm taking at least one of you down with me," I declared. "What are you talking about, Jack?" the one who had entered the restaurant earlier asked. "We're not here to harm you. There's no need for a fight. We're just supposed to bring you to Drea. You'll spend a few days together, sort things out, and then you can carry on with your wedding plans." I was sure I heard the ominous sound again. This was no stray animal. "We were hoping you'd come with us willingly, but if we have to bring you to Drea even if you resist, so be it," he stated. That's when chaos erupted. I grabbed a lid from a nearby trash can, wielding it like a shield, and swung it hard. It connected with one of them, bending the lid with the force of the impact, leaving him stunned but not out. A swift move aimed at another left him doubled over. "I wish it hadn't come to this," the lead guy said once more. As 2 of them held me, a third landed a punch, drawing blood. I retaliated with a defiant glare. "Forget it," I shot back. "If I get through this, you'll regret crossing me. Once I have my resources, you're finished. And if I don't make it, without the money, Drea and Gus will come after you." Just then, the growl returned, closer and filled with fury. In the midst of our struggle, a large, shadowy figure pounced, taking one down with what seemed like a powerful bite. Screams filled the air before the creature vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Another growl, and a glimpse of what looked like a massive claw swiped at another assailant. The 2 holding me froze in fear. Seizing the moment, I took the chance to fight back once more. The 2 men grasping my arms were more taken aback than I wrenched my arm free and struck one with a swift motion across his nose. He stumbled back just as a large, beastly figure charged into the man at my other side. "What on earth is that?" he exclaimed. Then, abandoning his comrades, he fled. The creature that had intervened now had another man cowering. I, too, turned to escape. The remaining man declared, "You're not going anywhere, buddy." No sooner had he spoken than the creature left its cornered prey and focused on him. Attempting escape, the man was quickly subdued with a forceful swipe. The creature's sharp claws did a number on him, and he collapsed, motionless. Facing me now, the creature stood taller and more imposing. It bore massive teeth beneath its furry snout, resembling a colossal, misshapen canine on 2 legs. Weaponless and alone, save for the terrified individual still huddled away, I assessed my options. The beast sniffed, its body shuddering. When it looked my way, I noticed something startling in its gaze, a human-like quality, strangely familiar, though my rattled brain couldn't place where I'd seen such eyes before. After another sniff, the creature vanished into the night. I remained, stunned, before finally heading toward my truck. "Hey, wait," the man from the corner called out. I faced him. "Aren't you going to do something?" he inquired. "Like what?" I responded. "Like call for help or check who needs it," he suggested. "No," I stated flatly. "I'm going home." "What? You must," he protested. "I must nothing," I countered sharply. "You all were attempting to abduct me. When I resisted, you attacked. Their fate is of no concern to me." "You don't get it," he insisted. "This wasn't personal against you. We were just following orders, trying to mend things between you and Drea. Drea loves you, you know. We thought we were helping." "No," I countered. "It seems you've got the wrong idea. Drea and Gus have concocted a plan for me to marry Drea, especially now with a large inheritance coming my way tomorrow. They believe that marrying Drea or having a child with her would secure their financial future. Even in the event of a divorce, Drea would receive a portion of the wealth, freeing her from the need to work. Gus managed to convince all of you to support his plan without sharing the full story or mentioning the inheritance, didn't he?" "No," the man admitted. "He told us there was a simple misunderstanding between you and his sister. He showed us photos of you 2 together, and Drea cried, claiming how much you meant to her. She said she loved you and couldn't imagine life without you. Gus explained you had seen him kiss her, not understanding it was merely a congratulatory gesture for your engagement. He thought we could simply talk to you, clear up the misunderstanding, and ultimately, you'd appreciate our intervention. So, you weren't there when the truth came out," I chuckled. "When you found out?" he inquired. "I discovered Drea in a compromising situation with her brother, and it seemed there were others involved," I revealed. "I can't commit to someone who isn't faithful." "I understand," he sympathized. "If I were in your shoes, I'd feel the same. But I wouldn't resort to violence, that's not who I am." "Why didn't you share this from the start?" he asked. "I tried," I explained. "I repeatedly said I had no interest in speaking to Drea. I made it clear that it was over between us, but no one listened. Setting that monstrous creature on us wasn't the best move, though. That was the most intimidating thing I've ever encountered." "How is it trained?" He wondered. What? I was surprised. I've never seen that creature before, and I'm certain it wasn't a dog. What do you mean? He pressed. It appeared right when we tried to persuade you to come with us. It attacked until you confronted it, then suddenly calmed and left. If it wasn't a dog, what was it? How many dogs do you know walk on 2 legs? I queried. Well, I've seen it in shows, he admitted, but never like that. Right, I replied with a hint of sarcasm. This is quite the show, and if you think I'm caught up in your drama, then consider me the director and you and your pals the comic relief. I'm checking out of this performance. Heading back to my truck, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me. Glancing back constantly, I spun around a few times, scanning the area, yet there was no one in sight. I unlocked my truck, fired up the engine, and was just about to shift into drive when a sudden knock on my window nearly made me jump out of my skin. Turning, I saw the biker I had just left behind. I rolled down the window to face him. I'm stranded, he admitted. I need to leave this place behind as soon as I can. Could you possibly jump in the back? I cut in. I'll drop you off at Drea's place. You can find a ride from there. He hopped into the back of the truck, securing himself. As I neared the apartment I once shared with Drea, I borrowed his phone to make a call, keen on avoiding my number showing up on her caller ID. The moment Drea answered, I didn't hold back. I'm about to drop off one of your lost causes at the wreck you call a home, I said, my voice dripping with irony. You and Gus really should take better care of your mess. You're running low on playthings. Jack, forget him, she retorted. Forget all of them, and Gus too. They're irrelevant. All I want is you. Drea, but isn't that the issue? I pressed. What do you mean, dear? She responded, feigning innocence. Isn't it true you've been with him, with Gus, with everyone? I challenged. You played me as well, but that's over now. Jack, it's complicated with me. I thought it was all harmless fun. You were all that mattered. The others were just sidelines. I've been this way long before we met. You knew I wasn't perfect, but you saw the best in me anyway. I thought if you didn't know, it wouldn't hurt anyone. I've always had to fend for myself, keeping options open as a way to survive. When we met, even if it started as part of some plan, well, it changed, Jack. I fell for you. Eventually, my feelings for you made everything else insignificant. After you're done tonight, come get me. Let's leave everything behind and start anew somewhere fresh. I'll even agree to any terms you set about finances or future decisions. I swear, from here on out, I'm yours alone. I must confess, the proposal was alluring, especially since I had genuinely cherished her once. However, trust was a bridge too far, it had crumbled beyond repair. So, I paused the truck just outside her place only to let my companion disembark, then headed straight home. The moment my head touched the pillow, sleep enveloped me, a deep, undisturbed slumber. If dreams visited, they left no trace. Come dawn, a wave of thoughts washed over me in the quiet. My mind wandered to Drea. Her beauty was undeniable, yet my feelings had shifted. Increasingly, my affections leaned towards Nadia. I imagined her with slightly longer hair, potentially surpassing Drea in allure, with a grace enduring through time. That's when it clicked, the epiphany. Nadia's mesmerizing gray eyes, I realized, mirrored those of a mythical creature in my thoughts. Bolting upright, a shiver ran through me, followed by a burst of laughter. The notion seemed ludicrous. Was I entertaining fantasies? Nadia, a creature of folklore. The absurdity of my girlfriend being a werewolf tickled me. Deciding on a change of scenery, I ventured out for breakfast. Nadia was nowhere in sight, and another waitress, with a homely charm, came to take my order. Where's Nadia? I inquired. She doesn't work mornings unless needed, and she's off today, she informed me. Then, fishing for Nadia's contact, I was met with a knowing smile. You're Jack, aren't you? She deduced, confirming the buzz about me and Nadia that had been circulating. She shared how Nadia had fiercely defended her territory over me, showing a surprising dedication. This waitress, who had been here nearly a year, noted Nadia's unusual behavior since my arrival. Her teasing hinted at an inexplicable connection between us, one that transcended the superficial, suggesting a profound impact I had on Nadia without the trappings of wealth or smooth talk. It was clear Nadia's interest in me was genuine, a rarity in a place where fleeting encounters were the norm. I think it's actually the opposite, I remarked. We've never taken our relationship to a physical level. In fact, when she hinted at it, I suggested that we should date first, to truly understand each other. We haven't even met outside this cafe yet, and you've probably noticed that I'm here all the time, just to see her. Do you honestly believe I come here for the cuisine? Her look softened as she processed my words. Then, with a sigh, she admitted, I'm relieved. Relieved by what? I inquired. Relieved that I won't be causing any issues, she replied. I believe you. Looking at you now, I can tell you're genuine and truly care for Nadia. I was about to share her contact with you, but what? I prodded. But given that she's right behind you, I don't need to, she said, moving away to attend to another table. Nadia eyed me warily. I gave her a reassuring smile. She was dressed casually again, in leggings and a long-sleeved top, making it hard to see much else. The soft fuzz on her face was still noticeable. I'm not on duty today, Jack, she mentioned. I should have told you. We could have had our day out, I remarked. That wouldn't have worked, she responded. Why not? I pressed. "I'm not feeling my best today, Jack," she explained. "My mood is all over the place, and I just don't think it's the right time to hang out." "That's perfectly fine," I reassured her. "I've got some things to take care of today, anyway." "Jack, let's plan for tomorrow evening. I'm looking forward to it," she said. "Nadia, there's no rush," I assured her. "But I am ready, Jack," she insisted. "It would be a significant moment for me." "Dear, we can take our time. I'm more interested in building our connection," I told her. "What more do you need to know?" she challenged. "I'm a woman, you're a man, and we're drawn to each other. Isn't that enough?" Her words hinted at a future together, but I knew there was so much more to us than just biological compatibility. I wanted us to explore each other's minds, not just the inevitable physical connection. I was taken aback. "What about love, respect, and compatibility?" I inquired. "And our future plans?" I added. "What about our shared interests in music, food, and the idea of raising a family together?" "I enjoy the music you like," she responded. "I'm happy to share any meal you prefer, and I'm more than willing to start a family with you." For a moment, I thought Nadia was about to use a different term, perhaps something endearing, but I couldn't be sure. "But how can you be so certain we're a good match?" I questioned further. "We're connected," she assured me, touching first her forehead, then mine, and doing the same with our hearts. Our conversation was abruptly halted by the arrival of 2 police officers at our table. "We need to ask you both a few questions," one officer began. "Last night, there were 4 incidents behind this restaurant. 2 individuals didn't survive, one is critically injured, and another is in a critical condition." Nadia remained unfazed. "I didn't see anything," she declared, her tone reminding me of a character from an old TV series, Hogan's Heroes, specifically Sergeant Schultz with his catchphrase, "I know nothing." "It likely occurred after you both headed home," the officer surmised. "And you, sir?" I hesitated, then offered. "We left around the same time and went in the same direction," slightly bending the truth. The officer nodded, misunderstanding our departure as an intimate getaway. "We don't suspect you of any wrongdoing," he clarified. "We were just checking if you might have witnessed anything. It seems like a typical case we've encountered before." "So, what happened?" I asked, curious. "It's a biker issue. They're often involved in altercations and illegal activities. The community won't be missing much with a few of them gone. The only survivors' ramblings include claims of being attacked by enormous dogs," he explained. "Giant dogs?" I echoed, intrigued. "Keep in mind, we're dealing with a rough crowd here," he mentioned. "Both individuals found had substances in their system. We're close to the wilderness, and with the full moon last night, and again tonight, it's possible a wild animal was drawn to the area by scent. It looks like these folks were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. I doubt anyone they've wronged in the past will lose sleep over this. Thanks for your time," he concluded. As the officers moved to question another waitress about the night before, Nadia and I resumed our conversation. She reached over to grasp my hand, her body trembling slightly. "I'm really looking forward to spending time with you," she whispered. "Let's make it happen tomorrow night. Can we at least meet here for dinner tonight?" I suggested. "Only if it's before sunset," she replied. "Why's that?" I inquired. "Just because, that's why," she responded. "All right, see you then," I said, standing up. Before leaving, I leaned down to give her a gentle kiss on the cheek. Glancing at my watch, I realized I was pressed for time to get ready for my meeting with my grandfather's attorney. I hurried home, took a quick shower, and dressed as neatly as I could. The events in the alley from the previous night had slipped my mind entirely. Perhaps it was because I hadn't directly caused any harm, and deep down, I felt they had it coming. In a short while, this chapter would close. I'd meet with the lawyer, claim my inheritance, and move on to a new chapter in life, leaving behind old connections and circumstances. Whatever had happened to those men was a consequence of their own action, or perhaps an outcome of their own choices. None of it concerned me anymore. Dressing up for the occasion, I arrived at the lawyer's office. He greeted me with a look of surprise. "My goodness," he exclaimed. "You'll have to realize that your life is changing. You don't need to concern yourself with these formalities any longer. You've reached a point where you're beyond the reach of others' expectations," he continued. "You have the means to live on your terms, without compromise. Screw you, I was no longer bound by others' judgments or expectations. You can speak freely here without fear," he went on. "Life's akin to a less than pleasant sandwich. The more resources you have, the less of the unpleasantness you have to deal with. And right now, you're pretty well off. You won't have to stress about waking up for work unless you choose to," he added. "I actually don't mind heading to work," I replied. He gave me a puzzled look. "Really?" he queried. "Yeah, really," I affirmed. "It's just the endless hours before heading back home that are a drag." We shared a laugh over that. I completed some paperwork and provided him with my bank details. The entirety of my grandfather's estate was transferred to me, including a significant sum of cash and some highly accessible assets. I let out a sigh of relief. After years of jumping through bureaucratic hoops, the wealth was finally in my hands. Yet, I didn't feel any different. Just yesterday, I was managing the night shift at a warehouse, a college graduate stuck with the least desirable shift due to lack of seniority. Today, I've become a person of considerable wealth. It seems the reality of my new status hadn't quite sunk in yet. Heading home, I pondered over my next steps. I was cautious enough not to rush into any hasty decisions or drastic changes. I knew better than to act as though I'd hit a jackpot and start making impulsive choices. Driving home, I was so engrossed in my thoughts that I barely noticed my surroundings. Sitting in my kitchen, deliberating whether to see through the 3-month trial lease or just purchase a decent home, my cell phone rang. I picked up without glancing at the caller ID. "Jack, remember how you called me the other day using Jerry's phone so I couldn't reach you afterward?" It was Drea on the line. "It seems you forgot that during your call to Spike, you used your own phone. Lucky for us, that slip-up meant I could get back to you. I'd like to think you did that because deep down, you're not ready to let us go," she said. "What do you want, Andrea?" I asked, somewhat coldly. "Oh, Andrea, is it?" she retorted. "You never used to call me that. It was always Drea for you. Andrea was the one you disliked. Drea is the one who adores you. Anyway, I'm calling because my brother is furious with you. Your actions have led to a lot of his associates being in trouble or worse, and now the police are scrutinizing his club for their activities. Gus was so angry he decided to take it out on your truck." I dropped the phone and made a dash for the window. Peering down into the parking lot below, it was clear as day. My truck was engulfed in flames. Panicked, I bolted from my apartment down to the scene. Frantically, I grabbed the hose usually reserved for the gardeners and dragged it towards my burning vehicle. I managed to get it close enough, and just as I began dousing the flames, the world went dark. When I came to, I was back in my apartment, this time tied to a chair. Gus was there, perched in front of me with a grin plastered on his face. "Thought you had it all figured out, didn't you?" he taunted. "Get your feet off my couch," I demanded, seething. He obliged, removing his feet and facing me squarely. "No need for hostility, brother-in-law," he quipped. "We've both said and done things we regret. I'm here to mend fences, get the family back together," he continued, suggesting he could disappear from my life shortly, to which I retorted that him taking his entourage and leaving my life for good would be a preferable and quicker solution. Jack, he sighed, missing my point entirely. "You're not seeing the big picture. I'm the buffer between you and legal troubles. All your wealth won't help if you're behind bars." I was confused. "What are you talking about?" I glanced at the clock. It was getting late. "You made me miss my dinner with Nadia. Is that the slender girl you've been seeing since my sister?" he inquired, his tone shifting. "I've always had a preference for the slender ones. But, let's put that aside. You and Drea belong together, despite everything." "Gus, your fling with her is exactly why we split," I shot back. "That was a mistake. We were both intoxicated," he dismissed. "But she's quitting drinking, and I'm sure you'll both start anew elsewhere. I'm perfectly safe from ending up behind bars," I reassured him. "Really think it over, brother-in-law," he retorted. "Don't forget the evening you left my sister high and dry. You ended up knocking a guy out with his own helmet. That was absolutely wild, I must say. Even in my tipsy state, I could see you were different. You're not the tallest or the mightiest I've met, but you had this way of pausing time itself." He lunged at you. I wanted to yell at him not to touch you since you were Drea's chosen one, but words failed me. Probably because I was way too intoxicated, he admitted with a shrug and a grin. But as he charged, you grabbed that helmet and swung it with such speed, it was all a blur. The sound when it connected with his jaw. That guy is still on a liquid diet. Word is, he might never manage to move his jaw well enough to speak or chew properly again. We convinced the police and him to claim he got drunk and tumbled down some stairs, landing on his jaw. Doubt they bought it, but without another version, that's their story. Then there was that other incident. I lost 4 guys. 2 didn't make it, one's in a coma, and another's lost his mind. And Jerry, ever since that alley incident, he's terrified of the dark. Keeps the lights on always, rambling about monstrous dogs that attacked them but spared you. I'm guessing you unleashed some rare, attack-trained beast on my crew. That would mean you're up for 2 counts of serious charges, he said with a smirk. But if we settle this as family ... we can both move on, he proposed. Forget it, I snapped. Listen, I'm only asking for 2 things, he continued. 1 for me and 1 for my sister, but she's having second thoughts. I'm talking about a bit of cash. With my connections, I could turn that into a fortune on my own. Who knows, I might end up lending you money. And how much do you consider a bit? I inquired. $500,000, he revealed. And I was going to suggest giving Andrea a similar sum for her troubles, but oddly enough, that girl wants you back. She's even willing to declare you owe her nothing, out of love for you. In return for taking her back, she won't breathe a word about your actions. So, you see, brother-in-law, for a fraction of your wealth, you get it all. You're rid of me and you get the girl. And if you both relocate and start fresh, you won't have to worry about me screwing her. In that moment, a strange sensation washed over me. It was hard to describe, but deep down, I sensed what was coming next. How about it? He asked with a grin. Do we have an agreement? What about my truck? I countered, hoping to buy some time. Come on, Jack, you're a millionaire. Just get a new one, he retorted. You're responsible for harming 5 people. Let go of that old truck. The unease in my mind intensified. Yet, I forced a smile. What's on your mind? He probed. Are we in agreement? Drea had sidled up close, pressing against my arm in a distracting manner. Drea, in a bizarre way, I think you do care about me. So, I'm going to protect you. Get into the shower. You need to wash away any trace of me from you and your clothing. If not, it's going to end badly for you. She gave me a bewildered look but hurried into the bathroom, discarding her clothes along the way. She's so clueless, Gus snapped. She adores you so blindly she'd do anything you say. I've always had to look out for her. Blessed with looks but lacking sense. His rant was cut short by the door being forcefully broken open. With the lights blazing, the scene turned chaotic in an instant. The two men by the door were now shrieking and bleeding heavily as an unseen force from the hallway made a swift, violent entrance. Gus and the remaining two men backed away in terror. What in the world is that? Gus stammered, visibly shaken. The sound of running water from the shower filled the background, just as an unearthly creature made its entrance. Its large, gray eyes left no room for argument. It let out a chilling howl, causing one of Gus's men to lose his composure entirely. In a desperate attempt to regain control, Gus turned to me, pleading, Jack, this was all a misunderstanding, he stammered. Call it off, please. Fire at it. He directed his men, who suddenly remembered their weapons. The first man opened fire, his bullet sinking into the creature's body without slowing it down. Instead of faltering, the creature seemed enraged, effortlessly grabbing my new flat-screen TV and hurling it across the room. The television struck the gunman with such force, it was instantly fatal, leaving a grim reminder on the walls and ceiling. It was a bizarre and horrifying confirmation of the old saying about television rotting our brains. The creature then turned its attention to the second gunman, who, in a panic, chose to leap out the window, preferring the uncertain escape to facing the creature head-on. We were 3 stories up, but in that moment, he seemed to think it was the better option. Gus turned towards me, pleading, please, Jack, with a voice full of desperation. He had finally come close enough for me to act. Though my arms were bound to the chair, my legs were free. Seizing the moment, I lashed out with a powerful kick. Gus doubled over, caught off guard, just as the creature's claws pierced through him with a victorious howl. He collapsed in front of me, lifeless before his shadow could darken the floor. The creature paused, sniffing the air curiously around me, moving in a staggered fashion. That's when I noticed the bullet wounds along its side. The shots hadn't been fatal, but they had definitely impaired it. It dawned on me that it was moving towards the bathroom, driven by a grave mistake on my part. The concept of scent being a mutual exchange hadn't crossed my mind. How was I to anticipate such a detail? I had wisely advised Drea to eliminate any trace of me from her presence. Yet, in an unfortunate exchange, she had inadvertently marked me with her own scent, drawing the creature's ire. It advanced towards the bathroom, its massive fist making the door tremble on its hinges. Drea's scream shattered the silence of the night. Nadia, stop, I shouted. She means nothing to me. Let her be the scapegoat. Nadia hesitated, then smashed the door again. The wail of police sirens grew closer. Nadia, leave now, I urged. We'll regroup at dawn. She paused, looking at me, searching for assurance in my words. Remember our bond, I reminded her. Together till the end. Now go. She vanished as the police stormed up the stairs, entering my apartment with weapons ready, scanning every shadow. Feigning unconsciousness, I suddenly heard a noise from the bathroom, drawing the officer's attention. Who's in there? One officer demanded. Come out with your hands up. Drea emerged cautiously, wrapped in just a towel, claiming she needed to hold it to preserve her modesty. Her charm began to work on the officers. One even cracked a smile, playing along with her act. Drea's allure was undeniable, and I sensed she could manipulate the situation to her advantage. Yet, it was crucial for me to regain consciousness and steer the narrative away from any further complications. Ugh, I sighed, my gaze sweeping across the room. Glad you caught her, I remarked. Where are the others? The police, momentarily distracted, turned their attention to me instead of Drea. What's happening here? They inquired. And you are? The name's Jack Silver. This is my place. And that woman there. I'm his fiancé, Drea chimed in. She's my former fiancé, I corrected. The wedding's off. We're just having a disagreement, she argued. We'll work through it. I love him. Her version of love involved her brother, and his biker crew attempting to shake me down for cash, I explained. That's not exactly. I mean, I wasn't really trying to. She stammered. It's not how it seems. Sir, what became of these individuals? One of the officers questioned. Officer, after I refused to pay them, one of them struck me on the back of my head, I recounted. I've been out since. You're not telling the truth, she yelled. Officer, that man over there is her brother. Feel the back of my head, there's a bump on it the size of a baseball. And, if you check, you'll find whatever they used to hit me. Actually, just look at my phone log. The last call I got was from her, warning me about my truck being set ablaze. It was a ploy to draw me outside. If you review the security footage from the parking area, you'll catch them in the act, and then you'll know who's really lying here. The lead officer checked the injury on my head and immediately called for medical assistance. He's not joking, Grant, he said. Someone really did a number on him. Go review that parking lot video. Fine, Drea conceded. He's being honest. But I wasn't after his money. It was my brother's idea, but all I wanted was to win him back. I truly love him. I was willing to do anything to have him again. I thought by being there, I could prevent them from harming him. I never expected him to call in his enormous guard dog to fend them off. I stared at her, bewildered. My what? Drea, what was Gus planning to do with my cash? I inquired. He intended to invest in a risky venture. He was hoping to triple his investment through some under-the-table dealings, she explained. Drea, have you been partaking in any of Gus's questionable hobbies? I probed. Only to unwind, she retorted sharply. And this separation has been hard on us both, hasn't it? Have you? I pressed. Just a bit, she retorted. I'm in control. So, why would you decide to take a shower here, especially during such chaos, if we're not seeing each other anymore? I questioned. Because you suggested it, she snapped back. Right, I replied, skepticism evident in my tone. Even the officers present seemed to doubt her story. Mr. Silver, do you understand the extent of what's happened here? One officer asked. Not at all, I responded. I was attacked for refusing to hand over money, and by the time I came to, you all had arrived. I never invited her over, much less to use my shower. I've gone to lengths to distance myself from her, including covering the rent on my old place to ensure a clean break. I'd advise checking her for any signs of substance abuse. By the time the paramedics arrived and examined me, I played up my injuries for effect, suggesting I was barely able to stand. They recommended a hospital stay for observation. After contacting my lawyer, who clarified my recent financial windfall and the end of my relationship with Drea, which had led her to obsessively follow me, the pieces began to fall into place for the authorities. The landlord from my previous residence corroborated the disruptive nature of Drea's gatherings, which hastened my departure. With this information, the police pieced together a broader narrative, implicating Drea in the criminal activities, including the assault and extortion. It seemed her brother and his associates had made numerous enemies, leading the authorities to speculate on a trained attack as retaliation. This theory was bolstered by similar incidents, providing the police with a clearer picture of the events. It seemed like those bikers had been tailing me since I left the diner, stumbling right into a feud with another crew. As they cornered me, demanding cash, their rivals took the chance to eliminate them. My luck, being knocked out spared me from worse fates they might have concocted. After giving my statement, the officers let me go. I shared with them my string of recent troubles since coming into an inheritance, deciding it was time to find a new place, somewhere quieter. They seemed to understand. Released at dawn, I went straight to the diner. Nadia was there, dropping a tray as she saw me, the crash of dishes breaking the silence. She covered her mouth, eyes filled with sorrow. I gestured for her to come closer and enveloped her in a hug as she nestled against me. Is this goodbye? She whispered. I gently hushed her. Yes, it's time to say goodbye, I confirmed, her disappointment evident. Tell everyone farewell, I continued. We're off to a fresh start. Our embrace tightened. But what about? We'll figure it out. Imagine a place with acres of wilderness for us, I suggested. As I kissed her cheek, I noticed the smoothness of her skin, a stark contrast from before. The full moon's over, she noted. It'll be a while before the next one. And so, we settled on a sprawling estate in California, surrounded by forests teeming with wildlife. Deer roamed freely, alongside various small creatures and even a few wolves. It seemed our new home attracted wolves from all around, offering a sense of security. Should anything ever go awry, we joked it could be pinned on them. Nadia and I thrived in our secluded paradise, inseparable except during those few nights each month under the full moon. She was joy personified, caring for me as I did for her, in a world of our own making. Our connection was electrifying. We found ourselves drawn to each other with an intensity that was almost magnetic. Every moment together felt like a spark, igniting a passion that was insatiable. We shared a bond that was deep and fulfilling, marked by moments of intense closeness that felt like we were living out our wildest dreams. Our times together were a whirlwind of emotion and connection, leaving us both breathless and eagerly anticipating the next moment we could be intertwined, lost in each other's embrace. We found solace and exhilaration in our shared experiences, waking up each day with a renewed desire to explore the depths of our connection all over again. Beyond our passionate encounters, we shared a deep bond through our common interests. She found joy in the simplest of moments, like watching me care for my car with attention and dedication. Likewise, she introduced me to the mysteries of the deep woods, guiding me through uncharted territories with a confidence and familiarity that was mesmerizing. She had a way of making the world around us feel like it was ours alone, a secret haven we explored together. Our connection was so profound that even when we were apart, the longing for each other was palpable. The nights when the moon was full were the only times we spent apart, and even then, it was as if our spirits remained tethered. She would return at dawn, sometimes looking like she had journeyed through worlds unknown. But always, our reunion was a celebration, marked by warmth and a shared joy for the life we built together. Nadia was unique in every sense, fiercely loyal and protective. Her love was a powerful force, exclusive and all-encompassing. She had a strength that was both awe-inspiring and comforting, capable of making her feelings known in no uncertain terms. Her loyalty knew no bounds, and it was clear that in her eyes, we were partners for life, a union that was unbreakable. Our life together was not without its challenges, especially when it came to navigating the world around us. Nadia's protective nature made our interactions with others a delicate balance. Her instinctive sense of territory and loyalty meant that she was always on guard, ensuring that the special bond we shared remained untouched and pure. Her reaction to any perceived threat was immediate and fierce, a testament to the depth of her love and commitment. In every way, Nadia was a remarkable presence in my life, a source of strength, love, and unwavering loyalty. Our journey together was a testament to the power of a bond that transcended the ordinary, a love that was as wild and beautiful as the world we shared. One aspect of my life that's been a bit rocky is my track record with relationships, so I'm naturally a bit cautious. Nadia always tries to reassure me that what we have is for keeps, but I suppose it's going to take me some time to fully accept it. The idea that someone as incredible as Nadia could genuinely love me is still something I'm wrapping my head around. Yet, everything she does just confirms it more and more. Just the other day, we decided to have a little getaway, right in the secluded part of our property. Given the privacy we had, Nadia felt comfortable enough to relax fully, basking in the tranquility of our surroundings. I couldn't help but marvel at her. She seemed even more radiant than the day we met, especially now that she's been taking such good care of herself. Observing her, from the gentle contours of her form to the delicate features of her face, was my favorite pastime. Occasionally, she'd catch me in the act, her eyes barely open, and we'd share a laugh. "What's on your mind, Jack?" she'd tease. "Only the most beautiful sight," I'd respond. Her smile was my cue, and we cherished our moments, each one at a time. Then, this morning, Nadia came to me with a look of concern. "Jack," she started, "we might have a situation." "What's the matter, Nadia?" I inquired. "I think we might be expecting," she revealed. I immediately reassured her, "Nadia, that's not an issue. That's wonderful news. I love you, and I will love our child just as much." Her worry was evident. "But what if our child is like me? If that's the case, then I'll have two incredible people in my life to love and care about. We'll handle whatever comes our way." My comment, "How you guys like a fictional one? Some people prefer non-fiction ones, which I have plenty of in the channel. Check those out if you haven't, and I will see you in the next one."